I thought I had it all figured out. People around me told me that I had it all figured out. I was 26 years old. I was the CEO of a well-respected technology company in Canada. I was invited to this TEDx stage. I was supposed to travel here to Washington, D.C. to give a presentation on this very same stage 11 years ago. But I missed my flight. Because when it was time to board the plane, I wasn't even able to get out of bed. 2 days before that flight, life threw me a curveball. And when I say curveball, what I really mean to say is something happened that completely changed my life. I lost my career, my physical abilities, my independence. I lost my identity. I'll tell you more about what happened later. But what I can say is that in this moment, my heart is filled with gratitude because I didn't miss my flight. No, I was able to travel 2 days ago to come here. And not for a second do I take for granted the privilege that it is to simply be here. To be on this stage, to be able to share my story, a story of how art took me on a journey and taught me what it means to be brave, and how being brave helped me get through one of my life's greatest challenges. 11 years ago, my life was filled with so many things that I loved. I didn't think that they could be taken away from me, but they were. Imagine you're flying a kite outside in an open field. It's windy, so you're holding on to the kite. You're holding on so tight that the rope starts to rip at the skin at your fingers. But the wind picks up, so your instinct is to hold on even tighter. In my mind, I was holding on to my dear life. I was holding on to everything that I had ever known. Yet what I couldn't see is what I was holding on to was actually already gone. I wasn't yet brave enough to accept my new reality. I had to move back to my parents' home. And just like that, my job title changed from being a CEO to a CEN, Chief Executive Napper. Yeah, I became really good at taking naps because I pretty much napped all day long. So here I was lying in bed, while it feels like everyone around me still got to move forward with their plans in life. Getting promotions at work, starting new businesses, finding their life partners and having babies, traveling the world and going on new adventures. My hopes and dreams for my future, as I had envisioned them, no longer felt like a possibility given my new reality. And when that image of what my life was supposed to be, when that image started to fade, I was left wondering, who am I? Who am I, and how do I make sense of this reality? How do I move forward when I don't even know where to go? It was also very clear to me that people around me could not quite get how different my life was. Perhaps this is because so much of what I was dealing with was invisible, but I often felt misunderstood. Whenever someone would innocently pass a comment on how much my life had changed, or would ask me why I did things differently, it would take every ounce of strength that I had to stay composed and to be polite. But the moment I was alone, the tears would start trickling down my face. I was stuck in no man's land. My past as I knew it had left me, and I had no vision of what could come next. I had my moments where I didn't think I could ever make it out of this ugly place. But despite having let go of so much, what I did not let go of was my curiosity. One day I wandered into the dining room and I sat next to my mother. She was working on a painting. Her supplies were everywhere. She picked up a brush and asked if I wanted to paint something. And without thinking, I grabbed the brush, I dipped it in some paint, and I made a stroke on a piece of paper. I had never before given art a chance. That was always my mom's thing. But in that moment, I was brave enough to try something new. I continued, dipping the brush in different colors, making more strokes, not knowing where I was going. And that's where my journey with art began. For me, there was something so magical about seeing that blank piece of paper get transformed into something completely different right in front of my eyes. When I was painting, I left no man's land. I was transported into another world, one that was vivid and full of color, a huge contrast to the dullness and grayness that I had become accustomed to. It had been over a year since I left the house. I signed up for a community art class. That first day, I remember taking a seat and quietly keeping to myself. It kind of felt like back in grade school, when my parents moved, and in the middle of the school year, I had to change schools. Everyone in the room already knew each other. I could tell they were looking at me. I was out of place, not because I was the new kid on the block, but because it was a daytime pottery class for seniors in a retirement home. Yep, I was at least 50 years younger than everybody else in that room. But once the class started, I quickly learned that this was a place of no expectations. I had never before done pottery before. I didn't even know if this is something that I would enjoy. But I signed up for this class because I thought the environment would suit my needs. So just as I picked up my mom's paintbrush, I started to do pottery without thinking, without planning, and without expecting. It was actually quite liberating because up until this point, my entire adult life had been defined by achievements, always moving from one achievement to the next. And here I was, creating without expecting anything. Clay very quickly became my healer. I also found it to be quite a magical material to work with. It starts as dust, but when you mix it with water, it turns into mud. Once baked in the oven, transforms into an entirely new solid form, serving a new function. Clay showed me that change can, in fact, be beautiful. I never wanted to lose the old, but once I was ready to accept and let go of what was, could I make space for what could be? And that is when the new entered my life. When I was young and we used to get the weekend newspaper, I would always flip to the back pages, excited to read the comic strips. And here I was, so many years later, back in my parents' place, finding that same pleasure reading those exact same strips. There was something about the simplicity of the images, or how they were able to communicate so much in just a couple of lines. I was inspired to give comics a try for myself. I had never before written a story. I couldn't draw. So I took inspiration from my favorite cartoon character, Charlie Brown. And I created a character with a bell-shaped body, sticks for arms and legs, paddles for hands and feet. This character was definitely awkward and clumsy because I'm a bit of an awkward and clumsy person. And through this character, I told myself all of the things that I needed to hear. I am confident. I embrace my imperfections unapologetically. I take power from my differences. I already embodied these characteristics. I just couldn't see it. This comic character helped me see myself. I had so much fun bringing her to life that I just kept making more comics. Each one celebrated a different part of my experience. My favorites were the ones that exaggerated all of the mundane things that I did, like going for a walk, or making my bed extra cozy, or simply staring out the window. Before this experience, I would not have given a second thought to any of these activities and would have likely dismissed them for being pretty insignificant. But they mattered. They were very much a part of my reality. And I just took so much strength. I found it so empowering to be able to express all of this and more on paper, to be able to make the invisible visible. My last comic was a picture of me illustrating this character. That image would become the cover of my graphic novel. The graphic novel was a compilation of all of the comics that I had written up until this point. For me, by the time I created that last page, that last comic, it was kind of my metaphorical bookend. It was my way of saying, okay, this chapter in my life has now closed. I titled this book Brave. I said at the beginning that I would tell you more about what happened. Something happened, but what happened doesn't matter. I don't talk about what happened. Here's why. I'm not looking for sympathy. I've let it go, and I don't want others to hold on. I need people to meet me with where I am at now. If I retell the story, that would be defining me in that moment. I am choosing to define my new reality. Things will happen in my life that will knock me down. And once I've picked up the pieces and turned the page, I don't have to talk about it unless I want to. I get to choose the moments that define me. I am brave enough to make those choices. This experience and the story that I've shared with you today is simply one chapter. My 26-year-old CEO life is also one chapter. Now I know that there will be many more, each one different, each one with their own characters and storyline. And what I have figured out after all of this is that my life gets a whole lot more interesting with every chapter that I write. My brother often used to tell me, "You're the bravest person that I know." I know that he was trying to be kind and encouraging. He was trying to pick up my spirits. But on those days when I struggled to get out of bed, being brave is the last thing that I felt. But after taking this journey, art has taught me what it means to be brave. It has given me a whole new appreciation for this word. Being brave means having the courage to let go. Being brave means turning the page. Being brave means getting to choose how I define each chapter. And being brave means coming here 11 years later to tell my story. Thank you.